Oh, great. Morning, Nick.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, we do.
Good morning.
I will call this meeting to order at 10 o'clock. I will read the land acknowledgement. The city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattiwandawang, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Does anybody have some besides me? Well, the councillor and I both have one. When the item that will be under discussion comes up, I will hand the lead of the meeting over to Win. All right, then can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda, please? Tom has moved, the councillor has seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, then that is carried. Can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of the August 29th meeting, please? Tim has moved, Tom has seconded. All in favor? All right, anyone opposed? No, then that is carried. Correspondence. Any correspondence? Yes, Justin?
Yes, we have nominations are open for the 2023 Lieutenant Governor's Ontario Heritage Awards. Nomination deadline is October 15th, and I can circulate the information to the group after the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I have actually had an email from Ken Scholten from the Department of Economic Development this morning. I have only just read it about 20 minutes ago. It's about Trinity United Church. I will bring that up when we get to our historic buildings under discussion right now, of which Trinity is one. Any other? Nick, have you had any correspondence you like to share?
I have not had anything,
Okay.
but thank you.
Financial invoices for payment. As far as I know, there aren't any. Have you guys gotten anything? No. I have submitted Sarah Kinghead's invoices for her submission fee for her talk at the National Trust Conference to the city, and also the cost for an Airbnb for a 2-night stay in Ottawa, or 3 night. I think the conference is 3 days long. That alone, those two invoices alone, exceed the $500 that were already approved by council. So I assume that that is enough. I don't have to submit any other receipts from Sarah. Is that correct, Nick?
I don't have any information on that.
Okay.
I believe that what you've done so far is good, so
Yeah.
I haven't been advised that there's anything
Yeah,
else.
we had agreed we would subsidize her expenses for that conference with $500. What I've submitted is, I think, in the neighborhood of $700 already. So the city has these receipts, and we're basically just asking for financing for finance to cut Sarah a check for $500.
And I spoke with Morgan last week, and she didn't mention there's any issues with what you submitted, so I think it should be good.
Okay, great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Beaver Dam's book sales. Does anybody have any news? I still have my stack of the books. I have about 5. I think Joe might have some too, and we should really get those over to the Lock 7 Center. Yes, Councillor?
Yeah, Madam Chair, through you, I'm wondering if maybe yourself and myself should just do that perhaps on Friday
Sure.
of this week. Thursday
Okay.
or Friday, we can visit the members who have books and then collect them and bring them all over at once.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
all right. General budget. Justin, do you want to do the, you already informed me about this, but I see your name listed here on the agenda.
Sure. So there was 2 questions from last meeting. Who pays for the notice of intent to designate? Is it from the committee or the city? I've been informed it's from the committee's budget. When it comes to invoices being submitted, when do they have to be included? And when, and there's about can they be submitted as they come in? So the invoices can be submitted when they come in, and to be included in the 2023 budget, they will need to be submitted by January 31st.
Oh, okay, great, awesome. With regards to the notice of intent, that was never included in our budget requests, because in the past that was always paid out of the city's general budget. So when we submit our requests for next year's budget, we will have to include that extra cost in our requests, because it has to come from somewhere. So we hadn't. I will find the funds for this in this year's budget, but for next year we'll just have to ask for extra money to cover that. Ongoing business. Beaver Dam's Church. There was the Apple Fest on Saturday. Linda, did you have a chance to go?
I'm sorry, I didn't. I had another commitment, but I'm sure it was very successful. And there was the concert last weekend too, which I understand was sold out, which would have been very successful. And the meeting for Beaver Dam's Church is at the church tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the inside of the church.
Oh, well, you should. It's really stunning.
It looks gorgeous from all the pictures I've seen. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
It's been a busy fall.
Okay, great.
Sorry for the video.
Oh, that's okay. Anybody else? Does anybody else have anything to add about Beaver Dam's Church? Nope. Okay, moving on to the Stone Store then. Apparently the lighting for the frontage is being worked on. I can see the wires coming out of the wall. The facade above the window is blank right now. There's not another sign up yet, but it has been prepped for the installation of a new sign. So the restoration of the facade is still ongoing. Does anybody else have anything to add? No? Okay. Installation of history plaques. The plaques have been found. Yay. So we can now install the plaque in front of the Dobie House. I have already spoken to Chris a couple of months ago about where it's going to go. Tim just informed him that we will come by and put a stake in the ground so that the city employees who will plant the stand know exactly where it's going to go. So we'll hope to have that done before the fall and or before the cold weather sets in, and then that can be finally stroked off our agenda. With the Stone Store, we'll wait until the restoration of the facade is complete. And also with regards to the Dobie House, if anybody has seen that the windows are being removed right now, they are not being trashed, they're only being reglazed. So in case anybody see, oh my God, they are replacing the windows without asking us first, they're not. They're only reglazing them. Any other comments? Yes, Tom?
How many were found?
How many were found?
Yes.
Plaques?
Yes.
2.
2. Okay.
There were only 2, only for the stone store and for the Dobie house.
Is there any other inventory located?
We still have 2 more stands after that. One was used for the Log 25 plaque, for which we ordered the plaque then, so that's already installed. And one will be used for the Dobie house, and then we still have 2 more. And I will also spend the rest of our budget on additional stands because we will need them for additional designations. And also to put the plaques in front of those already designated properties that don't have an information plaque yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nick, yes, I saw the hand.
Thank you. Just on the budget too, I did mention to Morgan that any outstanding budget, you would be looking to order some additional stands for plaques, so she already has the heads up that will be on there.
Okay.
And then I was also going to mention that I did ask her for a tally of how much has been spent so far. I didn't get back that information before today, but once I find that, I'll let you know.
Okay, great. I know it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,500. Our budget was $11,800, so we still have a little bit of room. We are also going to ask council at the next meeting for permission to do research on a designation project. That comes up later in the meeting among our designation priorities. Okay. Next item, outstanding planning items, Monroe House. This is where my conflict of interest is because Tim and I own the Monroe House, so I am handing over to Wynn right now to discuss that particular matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also have a full description of the issue attached within the agenda, also with images, but as a brief summary, so what the issue is, back in 2019, the Heritage Committee, under the leadership of then chair at the time, Craig Finley, so he had whoa, am I sharing my screen?
No, I am sharing my screen.
Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. Just
so everyone can see.
Threw me off there. Anyway, so what had happened is the previous committee back in 2019 previously voted to remove 3 specific elements from the heritage designation of the Monroe House. So what we see here is the exterior that I'll get to, but there were 2 interior ones. There was an old gas light fixture. There are also 5 transom windows on the second floor hallway, which are also interior. And then we have, as we can see, the left bottom, there's this neo-Tudor window. So this is exterior on the north side of the home. And that previously, or this has replaced the original Georgian style window. And as we can see, this replacement is poorly crafted and it was done in the early 20th century. In the picture of the window, you can see that there's brick scarring. It kind of sits in an awkward position when you look at the whole facade. So looks aside, you might be able to tell from the picture that the replacement window, it's also constructed in such a way that it leaves no room for an exterior storm window. So there's also a functional element that was lost when this window was replaced also. So the committee's decision to move forward with removing these designations, it was based on the fact that these details were either 1, interior features, so 2 of the 3 we're talking about, which aren't typically included in municipal designations, or they clash with the building's original character and craftsmanship, as we can see right here. So it's my understanding that due to staffing shortages and changes in the planning department, even though this was passed to remove these 3 designations from the bylaw, it has not yet been executed. So our main question is, are there any updates on the removal of these designations that were passed in 2019? Or do we need to do a new motion? Is that required to continue this process? But maybe before my question's answered, I also want to open the floor to Tom and Linda for anything to add, because Tom, at the time, he was vice chair, and Linda was also part of the committee when the move to remove these 3 details from the designation bylaw was passed. So I'll open the floor to either of you if you have anything to add.
Tom?
I don't have anything to add. It was my understanding that we would always take the interior ones off the designations, because we really don't designate. It's been the policy of the committee not to designate interior items. To leave the exterior the same, but the interior could be gone. And I understand, do you need a new motion for that then, Wynn?
Well, we're not sure, I guess. Nick, I see your hand up. Maybe you can jump in.
Yes, thank you. So thank you for that background information. I don't have any prior knowledge of this property, so the additional information is helpful along with some of the background. So it appears that the committee did pass a motion before to update the designated bylaw. I don't have a background on that yet. I'm trying to find that, and also to understand if there was a revised designation bylaw at that time. But what it does sound like is that there's some changes required to the bylaw. And then in order to amend the designating bylaw, it would need to go to council for approval. And then part of that is consultation with the committee. So obviously with the committee's support, then there would be no issue with that going to council. And so because it is just to correct the reasons for the property being designated, you get out of some of the notice requirements before it being considered. But there is a requirement to advertise after it's been passed, and then to notify the Ontario Heritage Trust of any change. And then obviously notice goes to the property owners. So what I was thinking is that with the information here today as part of the agenda, I'd suggest that perhaps we take that information, just verify what's in the background and if there was a revised bylaw, and then possibly come back to the next meeting with the draft revised bylaw if needed. Otherwise, then it can just go to the council meeting whenever it gets slotted. So that was just my updated thoughts based on what I saw. So.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Nick. So my understanding, we don't need to do a new motion because this was already done back in 2019. We just need to present the information a little bit more. Yeah, just present that and then bring it to council to have the final say.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any other points of discussion? Tom, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do, actually. I do remember the discussion very well, and it was passed unanimously in 2019. There were no issues with it whatsoever, and I believe at this point it was simply an oversight that the process wasn't completed. But at that time, we felt very strongly about passing the motion.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Madam Chair, I'll throw this back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And yes, Nick, I agree. We'll get a draft together that we'll present probably, I assume, through, maybe it shouldn't be our council rep because he's also one of the owners. But who do you suggest will present this particular issue to council? Can I send the draft to you and you send it to council?
I was going to suggest that. I'll chat with Morgan, but it would make sense that there's a report that goes from planning that has the bit of the background history and the attachments. So
yeah.
I think that's probably all that's needed.
Yeah, okay. I'll send it to both you and Morgan, then you will have all the info that's there, and then you guys can present it to council for a decision.
Great.
Okay.
We'll get that sorted in.
Okay, great, thank you. I just would really like to get this off our agenda. It's been on it for years, always says, oh, hasn't happened yet. So.
And I always saw it on there, and I just thought it was some other item. I didn't realize it was something that you were waiting for something on planning. So.
Yeah, okay.
We'll get it resolved.
Yeah, no rush either. We have no plans whatsoever. It's just something that the committee felt strongly about. It shouldn't be in the designation, even if it weren't my house. So but whenever, there is no particular rush or any plans for these particular items.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, then we can move on to the next item on our agenda, downtown facade program. Has there been any application for a downtown facade grant? Does anybody know? No? Okay. Moving on to the Tourism Advisory Committee. Ricardo, did you have a chance to join the committee for their last session?
Yes, at the most recent Tourism Advisory Committee meeting, we had a very good presentation on the tourism season in Thorold, and it was very well done, very informative, and I think it would be beneficial for the members of the Heritage Advisory Committee to also see the presentation. So I'm requesting, Madam Chair, if we could request to have the presenter present the presentation on the tourism season in Thorold at the next Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. I think the presentation was about 15 minutes long. So with your approval, maybe we could request that they present at the next meeting.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, shall we have a motion? Yes, Justin?
So just to follow up, the committee also motioned to have that put into a report, the presentation. That'll go, that motion will go to the next council, and then a report will follow after that with the presentation attached. The person who gave the presentation is only there for so long working, so I'm not sure if she will be around for our next meeting, but we
Okay.
can
Yeah.
investigate.
If she's not around, was the presentation filmed?
Yep, it's online right now, so you
Okay.
can watch it all on our YouTube, and then the report will have it in it as well once that comes out, probably in November or something.
Okay. So what do you suggest is any input from the rest of the committee how we should go forward? Should we ask for the presentation at our own meeting if she is still around, which of course would be wonderful unless we put her into a terrible time crunch? Or do we watch the report, all of us separately, online as it is available? What would the city prefer?
It's up to you. It's just a matter of if she's available or not. I don't
Yeah.
know, because she
Well,
has schooling and so forth.
I would love to have her present to us if she were available. Yes, Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, why don't we attempt to invite her and see if that works out? Should that not work out, the YouTube streaming will be available for some time still, so we could always go to Plan B. So I like Ricardo's suggestion of inviting them
Yeah.
and inviting her, and that would be wonderful if she can.
Okay, that sounds good to me too. Do we need a motion for that? No? Okay. So we'll invite her. If she has time, fantastic. If not, then I'll send out a memo to you guys to watch the report in your own time. Okay. Anything? Oh, how was it? How was your first meeting as the heritage representative at the tourism committee?
It was okay. I hope I represented us well.
Okay, well, thanks very much for bringing this report on tourism to our attention. It's very important to the Heritage Committee, obviously. Heritage is an important part of tourism in Thorold, and obviously we have a great stake in promoting tourism in Thorold. Okay, moving on to new business. Trinity United Church, as I said, I had an email from Ken Scholten this morning, so there might finally be movement on this property. I will it's not set in stone yet though. However, I will inform the committee as soon as I know anything further. What I know so far, though, sounds good. I just haven't had a chance yet to correspond with Ken over this. Any comments? Just to refresh anyone's mind, in case you've forgotten, Trinity United Church has been up for sale for a few months now. So there seems to be a serious applicant to purchase this building. Moving on to Allenberg Church, I don't have any news about the Allenberg Church. Does anybody else know anything new about that particular building? No? All right. Flannery House, as I said last month, the approval has been given to by the Heritage Committee to go ahead with the alterations to the Flannery House in order to put in a second floor washroom. The whole the architectural plans were reviewed and revised by a heritage architect, and they are now free to proceed. I haven't seen anything happening yet besides the restoration of the wood addition in the back, which was already there. That's not the addition we were talking about in the committee, though. So, and that is just being restored at this point. Heritage walking tours. Marsha from the Tourism and the Special Events Committee has not been in touch with me yet about heritage tours in the city. However, this is a very long-term project. That's not the same heritage tours that you are doing, Tom. It's something that has more of a techno aspect to it, so I know very little about it. I'm only involved for the content and how what will be presented, but they're not going to be guided tours. This is going to be, for the people who know how to use QR codes and cell phone apps to have a tour. So Marsha is the expert with this, and I will have meetings with her once she's ready. Any comments? No? Okay. Then work plan, designation priorities. Two things. We have two projects that look very, very optimistic. I have found out that the St. John's Schoolhouse is owned by the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. They purchased it about a year ago, it seems, from what I was told. I spoke to the Director of Operations and Special Projects, and he says he doesn't see any reason why it shouldn't be designated. However, he doesn't have any time to meet with me until after Thanksgiving because there's a bunch of emails happening until then. He's just incredibly strapped for time. However, after that, we will have a meeting and discuss possible designation and try and get approval from the NPCA to have that schoolhouse preserved. In the meantime, I have had verbal approval from the owners of 82 Welland Street North to designate their property and an ancient oak tree on the property as a heritage tree. It's not a formal consent yet in form of a signature. They still want to approach one more insurance company, their old one, whether they might not want to keep them even if the property is designated. But they have told me that they would like to go ahead either way. So I'm hoping that by the end of this week, I have a firm commitment, and then we would like to bring this project to council to get approval to start research, not to put in a notice of intent yet. That we wouldn't do until early spring or late winter, because we don't want to have a designation ceremony during the oh, Nick, yes, sorry.
I was going to wait till you're done, but I just had two updates. So for the NPCA, if there was some kind of a letter of support, a resolution from the board, that would be perfect to go along with the possible designation of that building. And then I was going to mention on the other one you were speaking about, Welland Street. So there is some resources from the province on insurance. It's a little bit dated, but it does assist some people who there are concerns about insurance. And it's interesting you mentioned that. So I'm actually on a working group with the National Heritage Organization about insurance, because there's a whole lot of misinformation out there about what it means for a designated building. And it seems to be an issue that crops up every now and then, especially if you're doing a heritage conservation district, it comes up. So there's efforts to try and get some consistent information out there. So that's probably going to be available sometime in the future, but they're working on something just to try and address a lot of the misinformation out there. So I'll keep the committee apprised of that.
Okay, great. Well, the thing is, theoretically, all the publications that I have read about what heritage designation entails, it usually says it should not change your insurance rates, because the building itself does not change at all, the physical aspects of the building, just because it is now designated. The insurance should be based on the materials of the building, the age of the building, the state of the building, not whether it's designated or not. Still, there are a lot of insurance companies who will just bluntly say, we will not insure, without any actual backup for it. The owners of 82 Welland Street North know that. They have gotten a quote from an insurance company who is willing to insure them. They basically just want to give their old insurance company the chance to say no, or maybe to give them a better rate. So, but that's good news that there are discussions underway to get more clear information about insuring designated buildings. It's just sometimes seems as if insurance companies just take advantage of that kind of legislation, like a designation, in order to put pressure on owners. It would really be great if that could be standardized and legalized, what is actually legitimate and what is not. Any other comments? No? Okay. So that's where we are right now. We're hoping, we want to bring one more designation project to the table this for the end of this term, and have the, since we have the money in our budget, have the research report out of the way. That way we can then designate sometime early next summer, and as soon as the weather allows. But it also gives us something to work on during the winter.
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Yes, Linda?
what is this additional property? Do we know? I don't know where it is.
82 Welland Street North, it's a,
Yeah, I've got the 82 Welland Street North, but you said there was one more in addition to that?
the St. John's Schoolhouse.
Yes, and another one in addition, or
well,
those are just,
there's
those
a-
are the two?
There's a couple of others we are working on, but those are not as close yet to saying yes as those two. So I don't want to bring them up at this point until I have an idea that we actually have a chance to go ahead with those.
Okay,
We are working on 2 or 3 others, but sometimes it can take a while to get approval from owners. So, once we have more concise information, I will make sure to pass that on.
thank you.
All right. History plaques and designated properties. As I said, whatever is left in the budget, we will spend on plaque stands. The plaques will then be purchased once we know which house will get one. They will also be used for future designations. We should keep them always in stock, because now designations have to happen within such a short period of time that ordering the stands only once we know we're going to designate might get us into trouble and might not be ready by the time we're ready to designate. The bronze plaque, for instance, that each designated property gets takes far too long to manufacture, so it will never be ready for a specific designation. Will always now have to be attached after the fact, so we want to make sure that the information plaque will be ready for any future designations. Towpath signage, placking recognition, we already talked about that last time. We'll make that a long-term project, which will hopefully include a museum, and then at one point properly sign and recognize that area as a historic corridor in Thorold. Next, the new official plan. I assume there's no news with that yet?
Did I put some in your notes or no? I can't
I think you did,
Okay.
yes.
So I think it's, the hope is sometime next year.
Okay, all right. So we have a little bit of time with that. As we said, we'd love to be given the opportunity to comment. Yes, Nick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have a chance to speak with Morgan about that, and yes, looking at moving forward with it sometime next year. I understand planning staff are getting the work plan for policy projects all situated for next year. But an idea we did have is that perhaps a session with the committee at an upcoming meeting might be a good thing to do, to just talk a bit about what the current policy framework looks like, maybe experience of the committee members with that framework, and then are there any updates that you think would be helpful to take a look at through the upcoming OP review? And then that way there can be some input from the committee on the record as the project gets underway, and then it can be taken into account. So if the committee is agreeable, I could work on something like that.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Do you have any
Okay.
time frame in mind for that?
We can see if we can do it for the next meeting. If there is the presentation at the next meeting from the tourism, then we can push it to the one after that.
Okay, sounds good. Great. Yes, Linda?
This new official plan, I assume, is for the city of Thorold. Is the city of Thorold considering designating a certain area of the city as a heritage district? The town of Niagara-on-the-Lake has certain areas, a certain area that's designated as a heritage district. And I think since, for example, where we are, the area of our area, it could be designated as a heritage district. Has there been any thought to that?
I assume that that's not actually part of the of an official plan. Is that correct, Nick? That would probably be something that would be put forward by the Heritage Committee as a project. But am I correct in saying that the official plan would most likely not contain anything like that? Or is that indeed a possibility?
No, you're correct, Madam Chair, that the designating a heritage conservation district would be separate from the official plan. The official plan does have to have in there the ability to designate a district, or else that lets a municipality do the study of the area. And then once an area is designated, it's typically included on a map in the official plan. But it would be a totally separate project by the committee, and it would have to go to council for funding. I'm sure some of you are aware, but a heritage district, it's a bit of a long process to go through. There's stages and there's council approval along the way. So it would be a relatively large undertaking. So definitely one that would need to be planned for in the planning budget and taken into account. So that's something I'm sure that could be looked at in the future.
Yeah. But we could basically mention that it would be nice if the possibility were there to work towards that.
That's right.
Okay. Linda?
Yeah, that was my question. And I just think that we have enough properties designated in this area to actually have a heritage conservation district designated within the city of Thorold.
Okay,
So I would like to see that happen.
yeah,
I know it's a long process, but I think it's a process worth doing, especially when we're working with the Tourism Bureau for, the electronic tour of our area. And so it just kind of raises the area and the actual I can't remember. I don't know how I'm saying it, but anyway, it raises the tourism. I think,
yeah, okay,
and the whole just the whole area for Thorold
yeah.
raises the area.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, Win first, then Nick.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Linda's saying, and don't quote me on this, but I think many months ago we had a brief discussion about this. I think we need to kind of first define the parameters of like what makes up the heritage district, and there needs to be a minimum of, I think, 25% of the homes there already having a designation in order to qualify for a heritage type of district. Again, don't quote me on these figures, but yeah, if we're serious about considering our area around Lock 7 as a heritage district, we just need to kind of define the parameters and make sure that we have enough current homes in that area that will qualify, and then that should make the process relatively easy to designate, hopefully, even though the process may be long.
Okay, Nick?
Thank you. When I can add to that with the designating. So the recent changes to the Heritage Act, that's one of the criteria that you evaluate on, is if 25% of the property, and it doesn't have to be already designated, but they have to meet the OREG 906. So part of what you do through studying a district is to look at the areas and identify which properties do contribute to, it's really the character of the area. So you, through the study, define what that character is, and then if you have properties that meet that, so if it's a certain time frame of construction or architectural style, things like that. So it's done through the study. Definitely areas with a lot of designated buildings are a good start. And originally what I was just going to add was that a lot of municipalities were starting to see pursue a heritage district just to be able to designate a lot of properties at once. We're just recognizing the changes to the Heritage Act and what that means for heritage registers. We're starting to see a lot of places that's their kind of way to get a lot of the designated, or not designated, but possible designated properties addressed altogether.
Yeah, actually, St. Catharines has just a few months ago is now very much working towards that for their downtown. And I should also mention that that doesn't mean that there can't be any development in those areas. That was very clearly said at that particular council meeting where that vote was cast. For those people who are scared, oh, heritage district and you can't do anything anymore, not true. So it doesn't put a stop on any kind of development. It just makes it very clear that the development has to be the right one. Yes, Nick?
The phrasing we always use when working on them is it's to manage change. It's not to freeze an area, but to manage how it's going to change and grow over time.
Exactly, great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, any other comments? No? Okay, then we're moving on. Info events and fairs, I put that on the agenda because Tom and I did a small info fair, was that only last Friday? Or Friday a week ago? Yeah, 10 days ago. It was at the Senior Center and it was in the morning on a Friday, so most of the people who showed up, of course, were seniors. Those are the ones who have time at that time of the day. But Tom and I were discussing at the time we should work towards having a few of these events and bigger ones than this at times when we have a good foot traffic and a good audience who can be informed about heritage and conservation in general. For next year, we might like to make this very much a project. Maybe we could connect it with the weekly Wednesday market, which sees a large number of people coming out. So if we had a table, an info table, and a fun info table a few times during the summer to promote our mandate and to make people aware how important heritage conservation is, not only to preserve our old buildings and our history, but also for our environment and our economic stability, that would be great. So I would very much like to make this a work project from now on. So whenever there is a city event, we should then discuss, can we have a presence at that particular event? And what kind of a presence should it be? We should have some materials that we can give out to people, and just educate people who might not know anything about heritage, about what it's all about. As we've already said before, designations are great, but they are few and far between. So educating people about why it's important to preserve our architecture, whether it's designated or not, that is something that we should put quite a bit more focus on.
Madam
Linda?
Chair, we could include the car show on Fridays as well
If the
in the summer, because obviously people are treasuring historic vehicles. It would be a good fit, I think.
Yeah, good idea. Good. Any other comments? Tom?
If I may, I'd just like to add to your comments. I found the process, we were very much welcomed, and
Yes.
the comments that we received were very positive.
Yeah.
Folks were really happy to see us, and my impression was they wanted more information, more opportunity to learn about what we are doing and the importance to the city. So yeah, I think it's it's a great opportunity for us to get out and sell
Yeah.
our product.
Yeah. I assume everybody's in favor with that? Okay, good. All right, then then I'll hand the mic over to all of you for a roundtable discussion. Wynn, do you want to start?
Sure, but I have nothing to add, Madam Chair, at this time.
Okay, good. Nick?
Thank you. I did want to mention I will be attending the Heritage Conference in Ottawa at the end of October as well.
Where Sarah
my
is going.
My company's the sponsor of the event, and I get to be one of the people going. So I'll look to try and catch Sarah's presentation and running into people there and learning about some new things going on with Heritage. So I'll update the committee afterwards if there's anything of note that I find or want to share. But I just wanted to.
Great, that's fantastic news. Thank you. Linda?
I think I've added enough today.
Ricardo?
Nothing to add right now, thanks.
Okay. Councillor?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Tom?
Nothing at this point. Next meeting, I will have info.
Okay, good. And Justin?
Nothing to add from me, thanks.
Okay. I have not, I have contacted Milan, who is the owner of the Edward Beatty House. He's also a real estate. And earlier in the year, we talked, when we were going through the issue of re-roofing his house, we talked about doing presentations to the real estate community and educating them about what it means when somebody buys or sells a designated property. He has not gotten back to me yet. He might be on holiday, but I will contact him again and get this set up. And Linda also brought it up in last meeting that we should have a letter or a sheet of, an information sheet for prospective buyers of designated properties so that they are very clear about what they're buying. That has been discussed in the committee before last term already. We should get that done. I will do a draft by next meeting, and we'll send it out to committee members, and then we can discuss if you have anything to add that you would want to see on it. Then we can get that finalized and hopefully circulate it to the real estate community so that when heritage properties come up for sale, it is clear to both sellers and buyers what we also don't. I also want to mention there are restrictions that people there are with designated properties that you cannot do, but we also don't want to scare buyers, because really it does not mean that the property needs to stay exactly as it is. The structure that is designated does, but development on the property, as long as it's allowed by the city's official plan, is not restricted. So any additional buildings or additions to an existing structure, as long as it's okayed by a heritage architect, that's all fine. So we also have to make that clear to buyers that, you know, buying a designated property is not something that you will regret. Of course, if you want to buy a property that has a Victorian house and you want something that looks mid-century, so you want, that doesn't work, but then buy another house. But there's always, what I mean to say is there's no reason to be scared about designations, but people should be aware what they can and cannot do. And they should be aware before they buy the property than getting the news afterwards, so that there's no bad feelings either way.
Well, Madam Chair, that's the fiduciary duty of the realtor,
Yeah,
to
but
make sure that they have all of the information disclosed.
Yeah, but we know that doesn't always happen. The
Well,
realtors who
It's
presented.
still their duty.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And as also the city is also working towards maybe implementing a heritage permit, that will of course also help with that. But still, I think it's of huge benefit if a prospective buyer knows ahead of time what will be expected of them.
Yep.
Okay, next meeting will be Tuesday, October 31st, 10 a.m., hybrid meeting again. And if there are no further comments, no, then this meeting is adjourned at 10:53.